So now I'm pleased to introduce the presenter for today's webinar. I'm joined by Michelle M. Truman. Michelle has worked as an educator for 21 years and has been in the online and blended arena for 16 of them. She has supervised a team that has been working on creating middle and high school online and blended courses for the past 3 years and is working towards a full course catalog. Michelle has her online and blended teacher certification and is also an online university instructor. So Michelle, if you're ready to get started, I can go ahead and give you the screen.
Good morning, thank you. I appreciate that introduction, Jen. I would like to thank all of you for attending our Mixing Bowl webinar. I want to share with you some of the experiences we have had using SoftChalk to build online and blended courses for the country's 5th largest school district. Like Jen said, I've been in the education world for 21 years and have served in a variety of positions over that time, include working in the online and blended world. I've taught university courses and professional development courses, but more importantly, I've been an online learner. My supervisor always relates that it is important to have an online learner experience prior to becoming an online instructor or designer, because you really need to know how it feels to be an online student. I began my online experience by finishing up my administrative endorsement by taking online classes, and that experience has benefited me greatly in my future endeavors. In 2011, the Clark County School District received 2 calls of action. The first was when the superintendent set a goal to have over 100,000 students in an online or blended environment by 2015. Now this may sound like a very high number, and it is, but it only represents about 1/3 of the total student population of the Clark County School District. The second call to action was that the district's virtual high school was going to be expanded to include a middle school, and the Nevada Learning Academy was launched. Our one problem? We didn't have any online or blended curriculum for middle school students. That is when the innovative learning environments began to create fully developed online courses, and those courses would eventually become available district-wide. As you can see by this graphic, SoftChalk is the center of our course development process. We combined it with Canvas, our learning management system, Google Apps for Education, subject matter experts called SMEs, content reviewers, formative and summative assessments, and templates that we created using SoftChalk. And this brings about the rest of the PowerPoint that I'm going to show you in this presentation. So, why use a CMS? SoftChalk has been an important part of our content development because using a content management system allows us to collaborate on different developmental aspects. And because it's cloud-based, we can work anywhere at any time and have access to everything we need. Another valuable tool is the content objects, both graded and ungraded. They assist with student engagement, but it also allows us to collect formative assessment data on student progress throughout the lesson. Our development team is small, especially for a district so large, so it's important that we have ready access to the content. As you can see by this graphic, I'm the coordinator. We have project facilitators for each department. We have college interns, and then we also have an office specialist that helps us out when she's not working in other capacities. So the project facilitators design the lessons. The interns go in and add standards such as vocabulary, content standards, and other elements as that. The reviewers are given the links to SoftChalk, and they get on and review the lessons, provide content review. They give us editing comments and different elements as well. And then I can go in and spot check the lessons to see if edits are needed, to see if they're adhering to standards that we have set up in our department and other aspects. And these are all from a cloud-based system. It's very simple for us to all access the curriculum. This has been a very important key aspect to developing a quality project. Another aspect of SoftChalk is it is so valuable is that it is dynamic. and this is huge for us. If an error is found, we can go in and correct the error, and it is changed for every user in that lesson. If the standards change and a course needs to be updated, the changes we make at the district level are instantly transferred throughout the teachers and the students accessing the content. And with a district as large as ours, it's imperative that we do not have to go out to every user and say, hey, please make sure you go into page 6 and correct this error. So Jen, I was wondering, do we have any questions on those aspects of SoftChalk of our course development so far?
No, we're good. You can continue.
Okay, perfect. Okay, this is what is really important as well. SoftChalk works seamlessly with Canvas, our learning management system. This includes collecting scores and adding them to the gradebook through an LTI link and Score Center. And this is such a huge help to our teachers because just like teachers around the country, they're overworked here as well. And this just gives them one less thing that they have to do. Now, people ask us all the time, if we already have a learning management system that includes a gradebook, gives us reports, and does other administrative functions, why do we need a content management system such as SoftChalk? The answer is very simple. First, Canvas does not have the interactive knowledge objects that allow students to engage with the curriculum. And second, Canvas is static when it comes to making changes. I want you to think of it this way in this little analogy. If I go to a meeting and I take notes on a piece of paper and you wanted a copy of my notes, I could walk over to a copier and make a copy of my notes and hand them to you. And you have an exact duplicate of my notes. That's the same thing when we copy a Canvas course for a teacher and he or she takes that back to their classroom and utilizes it, they have an exact copy of our course. However, when I walk back to my desk and I remember something else that happened in the meeting and I mark it down on my notes, you didn't get that change. And that's the same thing with Canvas. When I make a change or a designer makes a change in a course, it does not automatically populate to what the teacher has. So we have to make sure that each of those teachers that have our course get the updated versions. And sometimes that is not a very easy feat. So it's really important for us, because Canvas does not make changes and SoftChalk does, that when we do the bulk of our course development in SoftChalk, that it's easy to have those changes go to our end users, which are our students. So here's an example back to our graphic with SoftChalk, dynamic changes. It changed the way that we automatically use the gradebook link within each, as well as any curriculum changes. The other nice thing about SoftChalk is it plays well with others. Google is a big one for us. We had over half our schools, which is 320,000 students, half of those were in a Google pilot last year, and yes, that is a very large pilot. This year, it's open to all schools. So what we've done is, because Google, much like SoftChalk being a cloud-based program, the minute that you make a change in one document, it changes to everyone that has that same document. So we now use Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides in all of our courses because of that. Google linked products for students, we use Sheets, we use Slides, and anything else that our designers decide to put in there. But what is really neat is about what we can do as designers inside a Google Doc or inside the SoftChalk. You can embed them within SoftChalk using an HTML tool. It has been a good tool for us to embed in a slideshow, in a SoftChalk lesson, as any other type of learning objects that are built into SoftChalk. Let me show you one in an active SoftChalk lesson. Let me bring this over here. So this is page 6, and it is an English lesson, and it's part of an initial close read, and it's on a poem, and we wanted the students to complete a robust vocabulary activity. But we didn't want to just give them the plain old, here's a list of vocabulary words. So this is a Google slide presentation embedded in here, And what we did is we just included the vocabulary word and a very basic definition, because then the students are going to go through and do activities with this in their journal. But you can see how seamlessly that it embeds. You cannot tell that it's going out into Google, and the pictures are beautiful, and it really stretches and provides a big lesson to students. So that has been, like I said, a very effective tool for us to use. So to embed this is very, very simple. All you have to do is you're going to click File. When you're in the Google slide, you're going to click File, Publish to the Web, Publish Content and Settings, choose Embed, and copy the HTML. And let me show you how easy that is. So here is a SoftChalk, here is a Google slide presentation I just made specifically for this presentation. It just has 3 quick slides. I'm going to go here, I'm going to go to File, and then I'm going to come down here where it says Publish to the Web. I'm going to click on that. And we don't want the link. What we want to do is we want to have embed, so I'm going to come over here and click on Embed. And then I'm going to click Publish. And it says, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. And then I'm going to press Control-C so I can copy the embed code that's here already for you. And that's all you have to do with that. Okay. So then the next step is going to get into SoftChalk. So once you're into SoftChalk, you're going to go into the Tools section and click HTML. You're going to place your cursor on the page of where you want it to go. Tools, HTML, find the cursor, paste the embed code, and save. So let me show you very quickly how we do that in SoftChalk. Those of you that are SoftChalk users will recognize this. So I'm going to just place this presentation here where my cursor is. I'm going to go up here to Tools, and I'm going to come down to HTML Source. And it's automatically going to pop you in here where you can see where the cursor is right here. I'm just going to go to the end. I'm going to create a new space, and I'm going to hit Control-V to paste that embed code there, and I'm going to click Save. Now, what SoftChalk always does is it goes through and pops that in there. Okay, I'm going to do a save. It's still thinking. So you can see it pops this black box in here. And then as you pull it in, I'm going to save it. It always takes just a minute. This is probably the slowest time of day our district runs on. But anyway, so you can see that it'll save, and it'll save just like the other. Now, the only anomaly is when you are after you've already saved this, there tends to be just a big white space. It is not like a traditional SoftChalk objects that you actually have a box around and that you can see. So as you're getting used to things, you will be able to, here's the saved section here. So, and there it is embedded into that exact lesson. Okay, so let's go back to the PowerPoint here. Okay, Jen, are there any questions on embedding or how that worked in there?
A couple of people wanted to know if you have done any work with Microsoft Office 365 and if that kind of acts as the same way as your Google slideshow does.
I am not sure about that. When I initially started, before we got heavily into Google, we used to attach all of our journals and everything through just traditional Microsoft Office Word. And a lot of our students didn't have access to that, so then we would go through and create OpenOffice. So we had to have 2 versions of everything, one if it was a Word doc and one if it was OpenOffice. So as we've gone to Google, that has really helped us to get away from that. So that would be something that would be a very good thing to look into. I'm going to actually make a note of that.
And then also,
I wonder if any of our other participants have gotten into that.
Another question was people were wondering about putting the Google slideshow into an iframe and why you're choosing to insert it directly into the HTML code instead of putting it in an iframe.
It's a lot more seamless. We have had some issues with both widgets and iframes when it comes to secure sites and non-secure sites. So when we end up putting it in here like this, we don't have to worry about that. And like I said, it's very, very seamless. It's almost easier than putting it in an iframe, and I think it looks better, frankly. And it's just our new policy on how we're doing things, and students don't have to have a pop-up of a separate window, because that would happen a lot of times in our iframes, that as the lesson page loaded, then the iframe would pop up, if we were using a PDF or something. So I also really like this. You can embed a Google Doc in there and change that as well. So it's just really on how you want it to look in your course design.
Wonderful. That's the questions for now.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so that's a very easy way to embed that in there. And so I want to just go back to our initial slide, because we began here talking about SoftChalk, and we talked about how well it works with our learning management system, because it fits right in as an external tool, and I'm sure most other of your learning management systems that people are using out there, it will work as well. Again, it's really great because it can help us with the gradebook through Score Center. And then we also talked about Google Education. The links embed perfectly with that, and we also can embed within with HTML, embed there. And then utilizing our subject matter experts. One of the things when you're working with subject matter experts, when I initially came on to course development, we did what people refer to as crowdsourcing. And everybody thought, well, we'll just get all these teachers in here and we'll train them and they can give us all the content, and then the designers will be free to just be able to take that content and put it into SoftChalk and make it wonderful. So at one point we were running 51 different SMEs through, we were doing English and math and social studies at that time. And what would happen is we would invite teachers to come in, very select group of teachers that we got referrals on, and asked them, and they created surveys, and so these were truly the cream of the crop people through the district. And they would come in after school, so they'd been teaching all day, they were tired, and then we would try to train them on the differences of what content development is, as opposed to teaching in a face-to-face classroom, and the difference between a lesson and a lesson plan. And we really found that crowdsourcing didn't work for us. So now what we do is each department, the designers are responsible for the curriculum development, and then they use one or two really key people that are targeted for specifically what they are working on. So for instance, right now we're building 9th and 10th grade English, and we are creating those modules around books. So Trish, our project designer for English, found a SME that had taught To Kill a Mockingbird several times, and then we brought her in and trained her on how we develop course curriculum. And then she goes back and she does one lesson. And then after she does the one lesson, we bring her back in and we talk to her about what worked in the lesson and what didn't work, and how it would be different for people that are developing for fully online courses. And then we send them back out and say, okay, now create a module, and then we meet with them on that. So it's a lot of scaffolding when you're working with subject matter experts, and it's better to have a few key people that really understand and can wrap their brain around it than it is to crowdsource. Because based on what our experience, traditional crowdsourcing does not work for this type of curriculum development. And then also working with content reviewers. What is very, very effective for content reviewers, when we have a lesson completed in SoftChalk, what we do is we give the content reviewers the link for SoftChalk, but then we also print out a hard copy, and then we have them sit with the hard copy in front of them, and then also the live lesson. Because the hard copy, it's easier for both designers and the reviewers to document changes, but all the activities and lessons and things like that don't show on a hard copy. So it's very effective use of reviewers to use both a hard copy and the online. And then we also do the same process with the reviewers. We bring them in, we all have the same lesson, we go through and review it together. We send them home with 1 or 2 lessons to review on their own, and then bring them back and make sure that they are doing the review properly. So it really takes a lot of front loading, and that's why you want somebody that's going to be somebody that you're going to stay with, because you're spending the time with them, and handpicking those people are very important. So now that we have those pieces together and understand, I want to go through with you now and talk about how we created our templates and how we embed assessments, and then also what curriculum do we teach and how do we go about planning for that. So the process of using SoftChalk to create content, it really is all about pre-planning. And the planning of what to write is as important as how to write it. The first thing we start off with is the Nevada content standards. Then we create a schema, move on to a matrix, and then finally we go on to the lesson building. So we do all this pre-planning first. So here's the Nevada academic content standards. Is what we begin with. Now, we've all had an experience of a large popcorn bucket filled with popcorn. Now, what I want you to imagine is if every kernel in that popcorn bucket represented a standard that needed to be taught in the course of a year's worth of curriculum. This really could seem like a daunting job to figure out how to teach each of those standards. However, if you remember the old adage, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. We really need to figure out what that first bite is going to be, and that's where our schema comes in. So when you have a schema, what you do is you look at that whole popcorn bucket and you start pulling out handfuls. These handfuls should be similar to one another, okay? Now, traditionally, these are called units of study. Canvas calls them modules, so here at Clark County School District, we've just changed our vocabulary from units to modules, but they mean the same thing. And what I want you to notice here is that as the standards come out, they should be like-minded, because you want to have everything flow together very well. So in our first handful here, Module 1, all of these standards has to do with health, wellness, and decision-making. This is an 8th grade health course. Now in Module 2, the standards all had to do with nutrition and physical activity, and then Module 3 is mental health, and so on and so forth. What is key here is, even though each of these handfuls here look like they're similar, the same amount of standards, really truly, if you get looking at the standards, they all are slightly different, because it really depends on how many standards go together. You don't want to try to force things to say every lesson is going to have 5 standards, because that may not work out perfectly. So once you have the schema done, the schema shows the modules for the entire, so this would be a semester course. So this shows there's 14 modules in this health course for the one semester. And then from the schema, we take and we build a matrix. Now a matrix is taking one of those handfuls, which represents a module, and we are going to break it down into individual lessons. So you look and you say, okay, from all of these standards in this module, how many lessons am I going to need to teach this effectively? And basically you look and you say, okay, these standards go together. So for lesson 1 of that module, these standards had to do with maintaining a healthy lifestyle. And then in lesson 2, it was all about personal care. And in lesson 3, it was all about media and body image. So you can see here that there were 3 standards here 5 here and 3 here and so forth for this module. And it's very important, again, that you look and see what goes together, not some preconceived notion of how many standards should be in each lesson. So now that we have this module broken down into what we're going to teach in a lesson, now we need to think, okay, what do I need to do for a lesson? So Jen's going to put this in the this Google link, this Google short link. What this is that's a link to what in Clark County School District we call components of an effective lesson. It's what we have to base our lessons upon. And what we did is we created an online version of that document. And so every day you start off with, or excuse me, every lesson you start off with the learning goals. The kids need to know what the objective is for this lesson they're going into. We need some sort of review and connect. They need to have that connection to what has been taught in the past. And then we set the stage of learning with an essential question, and we tell them why this lesson is important. We try to make a connection to whatever age of student is taking that course. What would be something that could tie them? The so what? Why do I need to learn this? And then after that is really truly where we're getting into the learning of the topic. So as you can see here, the first part of the learning goals, they were going to be able to identify if you're a healthy person or not. And in the review, they're going to review the health triangle, connect to some healthy habits, and they're going to have some basic vocabulary words. Oh, excuse me. The essential question is going to be, what is good for health and how can I stay healthy? And in the setting the stage, it's important to learn about how to get healthy and then start practicing good healthy habits now, and then provide a little more information on that. In the learning topic, they completed a health assessment, they scored their assessment, then they went through and analyzed their assessment and set goals based on that. They were able to go through and define health, bring in the health triangle to those, and then also understand that health has a physical and social and mental aspect of it. So, and so on and so forth down the lesson. So each of these elements need to be put into that online framework. Now, please note that in middle school, our lessons run from 1 hour to 2 hours, 2.5 at the very most. So when we say one lesson, we don't mean one 50-minute period 5 days a week. Because we are on online or blended, we don't really have to adhere to those seat time requirements, in a sense that they may do 2.5 lessons two 2.5 hour lessons in a week's time. Jen, are there any questions on how we go through and create those lessons, how we chunk them?
We do have a question back on the subject matter experts. Can you share some of the material you use with the subject matter experts as far as the front-loading portion you mentioned?
Sure. What we do is we basically take that components of an effective lesson and so we give them the exact SoftChalk template that we're going to use. We actually give them a Google Doc and we show them how to write that in. And I'm going into our Google Drive now, and I will pull up some of that here for you and load that in. Why I'm doing that, is there another one that they would like to?
Nope, that's the question.
Okay, so let me show you. Okay, so here's one that we're using for, we're doing 6th grade science now based on the next gen standards. So this is something that we use with them. We have, science is a little different because they do have, in our district, we have overarching units, and those units are typically broken down into 2, sometimes 3 modules. And so here is what the SMEs go through and create. So they have learning goals, the standards, how much time that it's going to take to do this lesson. Again, it would be from 1 hour to 2.5 hours. They list the vocab and the appropriate definition. What you can see in green is what we're prompting the the SMEs to give us. So based upon maybe they need to think about something that went back to elementary science. And again, the quiz me, because we want to make sure that the kids have accessed the information on this page. So we either do a quiz popper, we do a quiz group, or a graded activity on every SoftChalk page, so that we're making sure that the students are reading, slowing down, and connecting with that content. We have the SMEs give us the essential questions. They're introducing the topic. They're saying, why does it relate to me? Then they're coming in and they're actually showing the teaching here. And one of the things that we talk about here with teaching with the text is when teachers are in a classroom, and let's go back to that nutrition unit, kids may be flowing in and the bell rings and they're trying to get the class going, and you say, hey, what did you guys have for dinner last night? And kids are screaming out, oh, we had pizza, we had hamburgers, oh, we had stir fry. And so then the teacher would say something like, well, pizza, hamburgers, and stir fry. What's the healthiest dinner there? And then the kids themselves are chiming in and saying, oh, I think the stir fry is, no, I heard a hamburger was, well, they should have had a salad. All those different things come into being the introduction of the lesson for the teacher, but she or he has not specifically thought in his head, this is how I'm going to introduce it. It's just a natural way that we can go into teaching. I kind of call that the introduction song and dance. We have to relate that back to the teaching element in the online world as well. You have to have that hook. So that type of stuff needs to go into an online lesson, and I think that that is one of the difficult things that that SMEs don't understand, because they're very adept, teachers are, at writing lesson plans. And so a lot of people go into this thinking, and I did too when I was a SME before I became a designer. I thought, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake. I can write lesson plans with my eyes closed. A lesson and a lesson plan are two very, very different things. A lesson plan is a scaffold for you as the expert to relate to your students. A lesson plan, or excuse me, a lesson, an online lesson, has to be something that's scaffolded and chunked so that every student will be able to have access to that. And that's where these things right here are so important. And that's why we really take the time to go through and add all these different components in here. And in this lesson, they provide 3 chunks of learning is typical for a science lesson here. And then they have the cross-cutting concept, which is different in science compared to what English would be or social studies. And then here's their assignments. And again, here's Google Docs that we give them writing ideas and do different things. We also have discussion boards so we can get in those Common Core elements of the languages, and then we build in lab activities. So we've got gizmos, we do free labs, and then we do teacher hands-on labs, so that depending upon how the content's being used. And then at the end of every module, we have some sort of summative assessment that's project-based learning. And then if you have accelerated students, how can it be modified? So that would be what our lesson, and again, this would be different depending upon what department you are working with, but that kind of gives you an idea. Some of the things for reviewers, I'll share this with you as well, and it seems intuitive at times to be able to think about these things, but pulled up a new tab. We tell them, you know, use a colored pen. We've had reviewers give us reviews back, and it's all in pencil, and that sometimes can make it really, really difficult. So we ask them to use color. We ask them to, because with SoftChalk, unlike Google and Word, where it automatically changes or underlines misspelled words, SoftChalk does not do that. So we have to make sure that that we run spell check on everything. We ask for them to look at spacing errors and things like that. Instead of just saying this is confusing, we ask them to restate to us why it could be confusing, or what they would rather see. How would they like to have it chunked? and then things like this. And then sometimes we will say, you know, help us delineate between honors and accelerated, or if there's a strategy to be able to get to CC kids or something like that. So those are some of the things that, and then we also have contracts on how we pay them, so they know exactly what their what type of reimbursement they're getting prior to going into this. And we tend to we don't tend to pay necessarily per hour, but we give them, you know, we typically do, here's 3 hours for this, and this is what you get paid for 3 hours. So that's how that works. So did that answer, did any other questions come up from that?
No, just a couple of comments that some people would love to have a handout of the lesson creation template. So yeah.
Okay, I can send that to you and you can post that. Where would that be posted?
I will send it out to everybody in the follow-up email sent within 24 hours after the webinar.
Okay, perfect. Then I'll go through and put together some SME resources and then send them to you as soon as this is over.
Great. After that, no more questions.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so so the next thing that we now we know what we're going to teach. So now we have to say, okay, one, what's a time saver going to be for us? And of course, a template. And so what we've done is we created templates in SoftChalk. Now, now that you've seen what we do for SMEs, you kind of have an idea of what it's going to be for SoftChalk. So, but we didn't want to be so lockstep that everything looked the same. And I know branding is important when it comes to a district. And so you can see that we have our Clark County School District ribbon logo in every corner. So we do brand it that way. And then in the bottom on the banner here, we have created by Clark County School District's implementation team in the corner here. So we do have it branded that way, but we made a conscious choice, especially if a student is taking 6 courses in an online or blended environment. We wanted them to all have a little bit different feel. So you can see that computer literacy here, U.S. Nevada history 7th grade, here's a PE for 8th grade, and then here's 8th grade health. They all have a flavor about them that provides a little bit different breakup and maybe the monotony of taking so many classes online, and this also helps them. One thing that we did do with the Google Docs in the same vein is that we color-coded our journals or notebooks based upon the department. So all math notebooks are colored blue, English is purple, health is pink, computers are gray, social studies is green, so that again, if a student is taking multiple online courses, they don't have to necessarily, it gives them that cueing that here we go, this is going to be my math because it's blue, and it just makes it easier for them. So again, each of these templates are on a page, and it has a components of an effective lesson for each of these pages. So you can see this one has 7 pages. This one has more because it's chunked up more. It's 10. So depending upon what it is and how the designer set it up. But we all make sure that we have the module lesson and the title of what it is on top as well as the course title. Okay. Okay, so inside our lesson, we really wanted to make sure that we were utilizing text features because it's so important for the students to be able to have knowledge of those. And these are screenshots showing 2 different English pages. All CCSD courses begin with learning goals and how to be successful and the standards on the first page. There's always an introduction page with an essential question, topic, and how it relates to the student. And what's nice about that is that it allows a queuing system for students. Students know that right here is where they're going to have access to click onto their journal, and they know that the learning goals are going to have to be in their journal. And you can see here this gray box, that is actually the journal prompts. So they know if they see the gray box that they know that they're going to have to answer a journal assignment in there. So Jen, did we have any questions on the SoftChalk templates?
Someone asked how it works for SoftChalk if we wanted to use our own templates for the lessons.
That's exactly what we did. We started with a blank SoftChalk file, and then we just decided, okay, what components do we need? What should it look like? And we spent a lot of time talking through the way things should be set up and the way that the picture should be set. And so that really depends upon either you as a teacher or your implementation team, how that is going to be working.
Wonderful. That was the only question.
Okay, perfect. Okay, just briefly on assessments. We know education these days are all about formative and summative assessments. So what we chose to do is in SoftChalk, we use that for formative assessments. I've already said that we use poppers, groups, and scoring activities throughout. We let students retake those, and that's where learning is occurring. But then in Canvas, end of lesson, end of module, semester and final exams, we don't let them retake those. So that becomes their summative assessment. So that's how we work the assessments into it. Now, we have about 17 minutes left, and I want to take a few minutes and really talk about some design elements, because you can have the components of an effective lesson, you can have the great ideas, but if you don't effectively use design elements, then your students may not have the access to the content that you want. So I'm going to briefly go through the major elements here, and yes, there could be an entire semester course on just these, but I'm going to give you a brief overview. Using color. Color is an important factor in creating access for all students. You want to use complementary yet contrasting colors. Students with vision problems will have difficulty distinguishing colors if the colors are too close together. And you don't want to use too many colors. Look at this page. It's hard for the eye to settle and actually read any text. So a good rule of thumb is using about 2 colors on a page and using them strategically. The other thing is about white space. White space is important as what you put on the page. Notice the placement of this picture. See how the focus of the people draws your eyes towards the text? Notice where the title is located and the justification of the text. They work well together. Now look at the picture on the next page. It uses all the same components. See the location of the picture? It makes their eyes go off the page. Okay. See this section? There's way too much white space there. And the font is too small and too elongated to have access for students. It is just not a good use of white space. Now for images. The human's brains are wired to recognize pictures of people. We pay close attention to photos and other images that contain relevant information, but we tend to ignore fluffy pictures. When choosing pictures for your courses, stay away from cartoon images unless it's a conscious decision to use them. If you go back to the vocabulary slide that I illustrated, I consciously chose to use cartoon images in there to exaggerate the vocabulary words and possibly give students a hook. And because they would be drawing those images, it was also to allow them to have access to how easy it would be to draw something like that. So I made the conscious choice to use cartoon images there. But as you're building your templates, you want to use pictures strategically. What we do in our course design is that on the goal page, we use the same picture in every lesson for that course. On the assignment page, we use the same picture on every page in that course, in every lesson. So then that way students know, oh, when I see this, I know the lesson's coming, or when I see this, I know this is where my goal page is. So images are very, very important. A researcher named James Breeze conducted an eye tracking study on 106 people by using a baby diaper manufacturer's website. In this study, the more times a person looked at the section of the ad, the more heat was detected and was represented by red. You can see on the picture on the left, where the baby is face forward, the majority of people looked at the baby's face. The only red on that whole page is on the baby's face. However, in the picture on the right, when the baby is turned towards the text, more people read the text. They even looked at the diapers, and they looked more at the company's logo. So this is important in our design decisions because we want our students focused on the text, not the picture. Pictures are there to enhance and supplement what we are trying to get the students to have access to. And of course, we want them to read our content. Now, ADA is very, very important. Title V of the Americans with Disability Act makes clear that online classes must fulfill the requirements of the ADA and the Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act. When I was in Nicole this past winter, I attended a session and attorneys were talking, and they said that it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when. If you do not give and adhere to ADA, that somebody will find you, and it will cost money in a lawsuit if these are not adhered to. And I don't say that to scare you, but that's what they told us in that meeting. So it is very important that we go through and adhere to those that information. And so basically, if you use what they call universal design, in your universal design, you design your instruction for the not for the average student, but for any potential students with a broad range of disability, their learning styles, native language, and other characteristics. And you can find a lot of information on that, even just Googling that. So I want to wrap up, and a quick review. In our proverbial educational mixing bowl, we at the Clark County School District combine the ingredients of SoftChalk, Google, and Canvas, together with design elements, careful standard-based planning, and course templates to create effective online and blended learning environments for students. Because really, truly, that's what we're here for. We're here for students. And we want this to be as easy as a learning process as it possibly can be for them. So Jen, that was my presentation today.
All right, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the question panel now. And Michelle, I'm sure, would be happy to answer them.
Absolutely.
We'll give everybody a couple of minutes. Vicki says, will we be able to view this again? Yes, everyone will receive a follow-up email after the webinar with a link to the recorded webinar as well as a link to her presentation today. Does anybody else? Do you have a recommendation on any other e-authoring tools that we should explore?
Honestly, and this isn't solicited by SoftChalk at all, but I don't know of any e-learning tool that comes close to SoftChalk.
Wonderful. What is the uptake and completion of courses by students?
I honestly don't have any of that figures. We have our full-time enrollment at the Nevada Learning Academy is not super high, but we have hundreds and hundreds, I mean in the thousands of students that take our courses in the summer. So some take it for credit recovery, some take them for, to get credits out of the way so they can take more electives during their high school years. There's a variety of reasons why people take them, but we have a lot taken through the summer. So next year coming up is really going to be our big push through the district. A lot of the courses that we have, which we have a full complement of middle school English, math, social studies courses right now, health, those are really going out to middle schools next year. They've been piloted through Nevada Learning Academy. And at ccsd.ile.net is our website that you can see some more things like that. And it'll show you the courses that we have. We call them one-pagers. There's listings of how we broke them down into modules and then lessons. And so that might be a tool for people to use if people are looking at doing those types of things. But that's all I know right now. But like I said, there's a lot of different things going on in our district that we have over that 1/3 mark. We met our goal for that this last year.
Wonderful. And someone said, can you repeat that web address?
Oh, let me go through and grab it, and then I'll put it on here.
Okay. In the meantime, how are your templates shared between faculty?
What we have right now, we don't have district-wide use of SoftChalk. What we have is our design team and the Nevada Learning Academy teachers. We each have our own account. We are actually migrating from a traditional public cloud right now, and we're creating a CCSD private cloud account. So we're in the middle of migrating that information over. But right now, it is the design team and the online teachers that have their own SoftChalk accounts. Our district-wide population does not have them. But what's really nice about SoftChalk is if I'm working with another teacher, I can share my account just like you can a Google Doc, and they can access your information and help with your document just like on a Google Doc. So that's really a nice, and you only have to share a folder. You don't have to share your whole course. So that's a nice feature of SoftChalk as well.
Wonderful. James asked, does your department or division design and build or take the lead on a team all of your online and hybrid courses?
Yes, all of them. And we call them district courses. Of course, the Nevada Learning Academy teachers, some of them are doing their own thing. People in the district, everyone in our district has their own Canvas account. So if they want to create accounts just through Canvas, they can do that as well. But yes, our Innovative Learning Environment department is the one that that takes point. So really it's myself, and I have 4 project facilitators: math, social studies, science, and English, and then a couple college interns, and then our department secretary helps us out as well. So for the size of district we have, it's a small team, but again, working with very strategic subject matter experts, it's been effective.
Wonderful. Do you have a few tips for blended lesson preparation for university students?
It goes back to those standards, and this has anything to do with education, and this is one thing I tell the designers too, is really pay attention to your standards, because if a standard says that students will be able to describe or analyze, those are 2 very different lessons you're going to create. If students just have to have access or be able to recognize something, that's one thing, but if they have to analyze something, that's something else. And I see this a lot, so I'll just give an example for a social studies teacher. 7th grade social studies, when they're teaching those kids U.S. history, they are overwhelmed because they're like, oh, on one standard I could teach a course. And I'm like, well, what's the verb? And so if you really look at your standards and look at your verbs and say, okay, what does this mean and what does this look like? What are they really telling me the students have to learn? So that makes it easier if you do that. And then decide in your lesson, what do I need to teach? We know in our district we have to use components of an effective lesson. At the university level, what do they have to know? And so if it is components of an effective lesson, then the lesson needs to roll out like that. So, and again, it doesn't need to be a 50-minute lesson because kids are not tied to sitting in a desk in a bell schedule. So if you only want the kids to create 1 or 2 lessons a week at 2.5 hours, then that would be equivalent. In our high school English courses, they're doing 1 lesson a week for 9 weeks as a quarter. But that lesson is in depth and there's a lot of stuff into it. So, and I hate to say this, it depends, it really does, on what your goals and objectives are.
Wonderful. That's it for the questions. So I'm going to go ahead and take the screen back. All right. So again, for more information about our presenter, you can email her at the address listed on your screen. And for more information about SoftChalk, you can visit our website, softchalk.com, or you can email us at learnmore@softchalk.com. And if you think you have a great idea for an innovator session, email me at innovators@softchalk.com. Michelle, thank you again so much for presenting with us this afternoon, and thank you everybody for joining. I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you very much.